want to say, I do not have colour blindness. I do not speak for those who do. I know colour blindness isn't just seeing stuff in black and white, except for monochromatic colour blindness. This is a test of the most extreme cases. With that being said, enjoy the video. So due to being bored in quarantine, I decided to bring down the old PS2 for some classics. Spyro, 40 Winks, Bubsy maybe? But I started off with Resident Evil 4. Now, you see, the thing about old consoles is that they don't use HDMI like the newer ones do. They use composite cables. Those are the coloured cables you sometimes see at the back of your TV. Anyway, this caused some complications, and I had to play half the game in black and white. This sort of had an unintended effect, because not only did it look really cool, but it was only after having the colour taken away that I realised how important it was. Things like ammo types, healing items, and just dropped items in general became a lot harder to distinguish without them all being colour-coded. So this got me thinking, how important is colour in games, and are there some games that are unplayable without it? So I gathered a small list of games which I think use colour in various ways, recorded gameplay, turned it in black and white to see how playable they were. Of course, I could have played them in black and white, it would have been better for the purpose of the test, but I didn't really want to add something and then have my monitor get stuck on black and white, so this is the best option after that. And then I ranked them to see how playable they were with the colour removed, although this ranking system is a little bit inconsistent at times. First up, we got a masterpiece. A masterpiece that relies on colour. How hard is the game when you can't tell portals apart? Not actually that hard. I mean, there's like two of them, one for left mouse click, one for right mouse click, so there's not too much you have to keep track on in that regard. But it did surprise me how similar they looked without the colour. I mean, like in monochrome, I thought they'd be, you know, a little bit different in terms of shade of grey. There are a few other things like the gels, you know, is it orange gel or is it blue gel or is it white gel? But I mean, that's, you know, usually you can tell pretty quick. It's harder to indicate that you've taken damage, but the only time you really do this, it's quite obvious that, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this, so that's not too much of a problem. And, I mean, I would say that it's completely playable, so it gets a 7 out of 10 from me on the you can play it without colour scale. I haven't played this one in a while, but wow, it would be impossible to play in black and white. These teams are identical. The lack of colour also made things like ubercharged enemies and damage indicators and the out of ammo counters really hard to see because they just kind of blend into everything because, well, I suppose everything's grey. Fun fact though, this game has 11 colourblind modes, including a black and white mode. Although 10 of them are hidden in the console. Why they aren't used as a public thing, I don't know. Apparently they're used for map testers to see if stuff is still visible to colorblind people. But like, why not then release them? I don't know. And the 11th one is the publicly released colorblind mode, which just shows when when someone has been Jurati'd or mad milked, which honestly doesn't do much when the teams look exactly the same. So, it's pretty unplayable without the team differentiation. So, I mean, that coupled with no real colorblind mode, it gets a 2 out of 10 in my book. Next, it's Superhot, specifically Mind Control Delete because that's the one I have installed. This game I thought would be a easy 10 out of 10. All the colours contrast each other, the game's mostly in black and white anyway, but the characters came out way darker than I thought they would in grayscale, which caused some enemies to blend into weapons and objects, and when some enemies can only be attacked on a specific limb, you need to know what limb that is. If it's hidden behind a gun, well, you know, kind of hard to do that. Some text also kind of blends into the background, and when you only have this long to read it, it's not, ideal. Also, if you use the body swap ability, usually the enemy turns from black to red before they become hostile. In this version, they turn black to black. So, not a big thing, but still, It gets an 8 out of 10. One of my favourite games is up on the chopping block. This should be fun. I actually didn't expect this to work as well as it did. Sure, there are a few issues with it, like the lack of coloured lighting hiding some important objects like Plantera bulbs, ores kind of looking the same without colour, and the entire map loses a lot of its identifiability when everything's grey. But you can still see enemies, got a clear health bar, you can distinguish gold hearts from red hearts. It's still completely playable. So it's getting another 8 out of 10. This is basically my there's a few inconveniences, but you can play it score. The lush plains of Skyrim. But what if they were all a sad grey? Again, it works surprisingly well. Nothing I would say is super reliant on colour alone. Sure, identifying certain potions from a distance can be a hassle. I mean, is it a magic potion? Is it a health potion? I don't know, walk up to it to find out. But, I mean, you'll figure it out. Seeing enemies in an open area can also be a bit of a hassle. While browsing r/colorblind to gather research for this video, someone apparently walked into a mammoth without knowing it was there because it blended into the grass. The good thing about this is the Magicka health and stamina bars are all in different places, so you don't have to look at the color of them, you just have to look at the position of the bar. And you'll know which bar is which pretty soon, because as soon as you run out of something, Skyrim will be like, hey, your health is running a little low there. Your health is running a little bit low. Keep an eye on your stamina.
The health bar
Your stamina.
a little bit low.
Whoa, you see that?
Running,
you see that?
running.
Where's it out?
Well,
Keep an eye on your stamina.
You're magic.
You've got to run it out.
Stop running. Running it out.
Stop. Picked up some cheese.
You run out of stamina. Running.
Magic.
You'll be out running. You won't be out running. That's what's going to happen. That's the only way that we do it. Don't stop.
As I said, the main issue is just spotting enemies in planes, but seeing as 1 in 12 men have some sort of mild colour blindness, and this game has the largest modding community of any game ever probably, someone's made a mod for it. This game gets a 9 out of 10, possibly a 10 if you get the mods for it. Now it's time for the last game, the one I was certain was going to be unplayable. First off, this is the only game on this list that has actual colorblind modes. I'm not counting TF2's attempt. But even without those, I would still think that this game is completely playable without color, and you wouldn't lose much, at least in my opinion. All of the territories and enemies have respective symbols to show who they belong to, so you don't have to specifically rely on color for that. As well as it's not exactly a fast-paced game, so it's not like, I need to know that person is that color immediately. I don't have time to look at a logo and look at it similar to this logo. No. It's take your time. Even the health bars, which are a big problem in a lot of these games, where I don't know if it's turned red yet. I don't know if I should heal. Those are just numbered, so you can heal when you feel like it. All in all, I think this game's completely functional without color, and it's the only one on this list, scoring a perfect 10. The fact that only one of those 6 games had a colorblind mode, and it was the one that was pretty much completely functional without it, is kind of sad, especially when, as I said, many people have colorblindness, even if it's mild. But here's the thing, it's getting way better. Splatoon is a clever combat to colorblindness, which is its color lock setting, where it locks the game at the most contrasting colors, so you won't have an issue if you can't tell colors apart unless they contrast heavily. Or you really just like orange and blue, you can play with it every match. The Last of Us 2 has so many accessibility settings, from just being able to hold a button instead of mashing it, to being able to play basically the entire game with the character highlighted and everything else dimmed out, to being able to zoom in on the screen to read certain bits of text. I mean, that's amazing. And that's just in the software side of things. Over in hardware, you got eye tracking, you got the Xbox Adaptive Controller. I mean, that alone is probably widening the amount of people who can actually play games a lot more. And I hope that's a trend that continues. Now, I personally am lucky enough to not have a disability, but I myself, and I'm sure many other people have, kind of took accessibility settings for granted and thought, well, if the game needs them, the devs probably put them in. But in a lot of cases, as I've learned, that's not the case. And it makes me think this has really opened my eyes to all the people who can't really experience games the same way or have to experience them differently because they physically can't experience them the way that everyone else does. I highly recommend you try this experiment out for yourself or something similar. I would love to know what games can also be played completely in grayscale. It's super informative and really opens your eyes. With that being said, if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like or maybe even subscribe. Bye!